This is Andy B on the Get Your Home Show. Hello and welcome. We every Thursday chat with Laure Jackson. We've done more than 100 chats like this, at least a half an hour as a time, as I said before. And we're talking about sensory health. And we've covered such a smorgasbord of topics. It's amazing. Hello, Anne.
Hello, I was just enjoying that. Just carry on.
That's fine. We really have. I was saying this just before the news. We've covered topics like if someone's got dementia, how can sensory health help you get more involved with them, help them be more peaceful, calm, and engaged in the family? We've looked at babies. You know, how can the mum do better with her sensory health, considering the sensory health of the baby before it's born? So we've covered literally every end of the spectrum of life. We've looked at things like the more commonly known ADHD and autism and such things, names you're probably more familiar with. We've learned, this was very exciting early on, that there aren't five senses. Well, there's more than five. There's five senses, two more, and a whole group. So that was quite fascinating right early on. And we do this every single week. And I still enjoy this. I think it's brilliant. I just really enjoy talking about sensory health.
I could talk about this all day, every day. In fact, I probably do, don't I? Because that's my job in my life. But it's it's freeing, it's enlightening, light bulb moments, aha moments for people who've really not looked at it much before. You start tuning into your senses and you realize, goodness me, how much of your life revolves around how you process your senses without you even realizing it.
Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about this with the topic for today, because myself and Nathan went to see a particular film. Now, Truth and Treason, depending on where you are in the world, it's a film about Nazi Germany. In the UK on Amazon Prime, it comes out on the 18th of May. I would describe it, and did actually for the film distributor, as a truthful retelling of a true story, which is what it feels like. So this is Nazi Germany, 1940, 41, 42. And it's all about them standing up for what's right, hence truth and treason. Do you stand up for the truth and then face the charge of treason? Would you not? How would you do that? Now, I wanted to talk about sort of the going to see the film rather than the film itself, because that's history and that's not quite what we talk about. But I did want to talk about the experience of going to a film, because I don't know, I've always been a bit of a people watcher, as I've shared. My absolute favorite thing in the world to do, if I want to go and relax, is go and buy a coffee, because they're expensive. Go and buy a coffee and a cake, sit in a coffee shop and just sit and watch other people. Don't need a book, don't need people to talk to. I just want to sit and watch. What are they doing? Who are they for? What are they do? Where they come from? And that's what I absolutely adore. So I did a little bit of this actually at the film screening. Now, this was in just off Leicester Square in a very posh hotel. It's a proper real film. We've never done like full-on interviews with real cast members. It's usually interviews like this, which are great. So it was a new skill to learn. But I was thinking about sensory health, specifically because we're standing in the line. I'm quite hot. I'm quite sweaty. We had to get from Tube train to Leicester Square. We were very late. We left an hour earlier than we needed to, and we arrived 45 minutes late, which just tells you how bad the journey was. So already my senses are on edge. My whole body, because I'm tired. Okay, so we're going through a part of London. We had to go on a different tube. I knew exactly where I was going. I'd mapped it out and everything. Had to get on a different tube, so we ended up at a different place. So now I'm trying to work out, how do I hold my phone safely in London, because London mobile phones, and get to where we're going. So all of this is going on to set up the scene for what I wanted to talk to you about. We finally get to the hotel. We get down to the bottom of this very beautiful hotel where the screen is going to be. We go into this room. I'm now hot and sweaty and thinking, no, toilet stop. It's got to be. We all drank before we got to this tube station, which we didn't get to an hour and a half ago. Go to the toilet, get that sorted. We stand up on the line. And I realized a couple of things about myself, which is the bit I wanted to talk about. The long intro than normal, because I thought, I'm actually not that nervous about this, because, hey, these are just people and it's interviews. I can do interviews. I'm quite confident. And there was someone just to my left who was very shaky. She had business cards, note cards in front of her. She'd done loads of research and she was great, but she was very nervous. And it struck me, despite it all going wrong, Nathan and I had done a lot of preparation. We had a lot of experience of doing interviews generally. So when we got into this room to do something we've never done, which this other person had never done, we were kind of okay. But the interesting thing was, and this is the question, we arrived slightly hassled. We'd never done this before. We look a little bit we don't know what we're doing. We really do. Nathan's trying to get the camera out, build that in the corner. I'm trying to get the microphone set up. And this other lady had this really fancy stand for a mobile phone. She had all this fancy kit, but she'd never done it before. Now, we were quite calm, and she wasn't. And it struck me the difference between experience, which we do actually have now, and not experience. Now, she's done loads of interviews, never in that context. I've done none of those proper lineup with the cast and the crew. But she was really nervous. So it made me consider, and this is sort of an observation question, I guess, the difference between experience and not, between maturity, because I'm a bit older, and her, not immature, that's not quite what we're saying, but I'm more mature because I'm older, and just how much more able I was to do my job because I was more relaxed, because, hey, do you know it's all gone wrong, but hey, let's just crack on, because somehow I was able to leave all those things. Now, there's a whole raft of sensory healthy stuff in there, which I've thought about, and I just thought kind of open up that observation to see where you might want to go with it, because it struck me the power of sensory health, and I'm quite healthy, in that fairly stressful environment.
Yeah, where you started off, the fact that, as you say, that was a long lead up, but actually it often the lead up is what really changes an event. So for me, I know what your lead up was. I'd be really curious to hear what hers was or wasn't that would have helped her better. So all we know from the story so far is that she is there and she's not really in a good place. So we have experience, we have her side of expectations, all of that other emotional stuff that plays into it. I have no idea. Did she set her systems up in any way, shape, or form in order to get there beforehand? Really interesting looking at yours, because technically you should have been a lot worse than her, considering we had real temperature regulation. Anxiety was up. You did not know this, that, and the other, all the planning of recognizing the sights and the sounds and the smells and the direction, your vestibular system, your orientation of I'm going from this place to this place, and I've got it planned out. So you would have been in top peak sensory health had it all gone to plan. The thing that your nervous system was able to do, which was a beautiful thing, although it was heightened, although you were more sensitive and it was more stressful and anxiety provoking, which tends to make the senses, well, it does, it just makes the senses more aware of everything that's going on, which can be really negative for some people. But you were able to bring it down because of your experience. The emotional centers, you were able to override that, and you took captive those thoughts of what could have been, and you were saying things even there are, you've been there before, I've done it before, I know I can do it. So all of the language side of what was feeding into your system, what was enabling you to actually reduce yourself down. Did you feel the end result was different with how you were to how she was, or is that difficult to say?
She said thank you to me afterwards, because I gave her some pep talks, because she was really struggling to know how to ask questions. Now, she's done talks, and from all accounts, I've had a little look at her website. She's very good at what she does, but this is a different context. So it was for me, but I've also interviewed all sorts of people over the years. So there's a little bit of differences going on. But the fascinating part for me was I was able to help her do better interviews. So she said thank you to me. I commented on her Instagram page and said thank you for the pep talks, because so how did you know what questions to ask? Because she has notes. She did loads of research. And I said, that's absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with doing research. I don't. That's my approach and style. You sort of got used to that. I don't come in with any pre-prepared anything. It's just, okay, let's go. That's me. And what I said to her is, you need to be yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you are yourself, a whole bunch of stuff happens at the same time in different order, but without importance. But you're more relaxed, you're more confident, you're more sure of who you are, because you're being more of what you are. And if you're trying to be like anybody else, and honestly, on this sort of press line, there were so many different types of interviewing. There was, very, very hard hitting, sort of much more direct questions. There was me, Alan and Natta, pretty much with anybody I spoke to. She had specific points she wanted to get out. So there's all these different things, and they're all absolutely fine. But one of the things I've learned over the years is, do you know what? This is me. I don't really care. It's fine. I'm happy with it. If you're not, great. And it was actually really lovely to see one of the actors who, when he started to talk to, because we were not videoing, everybody else was pretty much, we were doing photos. So Nathan was taking obviously photos every 5, 10, 15 seconds or what have you. And one of the actors was sort of not quite folded arms closed, but he wasn't quite that relaxed. And as we went through the photos, it was fascinating to watch as I just ramble away. He was going from quite stiff to much more relaxed and joking. A jacket flew open and he was gesticulating and hands in his pocket. And it was fascinating to watch the progression. And I don't have any special tricks or magical stuff that I do. I'm just myself because it's too hard to be anything else. And I just spoke. And after I'd spoken to this lady who was quite nervous, she got much better and she got better into what she was doing. And I think she did a great job and she got more and more into what she was doing. But I think the interesting thing was she was there ahead of us. We walked into the room. She was pretty much the only one set up. So she was arrived very early. But I just kind of arrive and do what I got to do. And if I'm late, I'm late. What I didn't tell you is my zip broke just as we arrived.
Oh.
So there's another pressure for you. I'm now walking around with a trouser zips that didn't work, thinking, I'm going to get arrested for indecency. This could be an interesting challenge. Trying to fix them. I managed to get them to sort of close and kept my jacket very firmly closed. But all of this came in. I'm not in any way saying I did really well. Look at me. It's not about that. It's about saying, you know, my sensory health. I'm talking more than normal day because it was quite fun. But my sensory health, it kind of reset itself in spite of going on, because my assumption is I'm a bit old. I'm nearly 50. Is I'm just going to carry on, and the rest of me will catch up as we go, and we'll just have fun. And I spoke to a lot of folk that night, and I got some really lovely responses from folk because I don't ask the questions that everybody else asks, which means I'm more able to put them at ease because I don't really care about some of the technical stuff. That's not my beef. Great if that's what you want to ask. I just want to have a chat.
And I think the more we can relax into who we are, regardless of whatever, whether you're a teacher, whether you're in the bank, there are so many things that we think we ought to be and ought to have, even in that. But it's the way we can relax and what it does to our whole nervous systems, the acceptance of who we are. That, goodness me, is huge. Utterly, it's huge. It has such an impact. And I love the way. So I would be looking at, you know, your actor fellow who relaxed over time. One of the biggest ways that we could tell with the body language, that's his proprioceptive functioning, and his tactile processing, because we, you know, arms closed, kind of like jackets, you know, things buttoned up. It's that protective response. Whether I'm sure he didn't have an overreactive tactile system, but that is how, if folks do, that is how they will present. They will be very aware of circumstances. They'll be watching people around the room. They'll be checking that nobody's going to come and touch them unexpectedly. They don't want people to come up behind them unexpectedly. So your chappie who wasn't in the best place. So anxiety and overreactivity can look really, really similar, and that there's a massive link between them. But for this guy who was just a little bit more, just wary of whatever you were going to be with him, body language using tactile proprioception. So proprioception being the way that we position our body and the things that we do with our muscles and our joints and the inputs that we give to them. So he was quite closed. And then as the emotional side of things relaxes, because he knows that you're not a threat, because you just are you, and that's it. So his whole body is able to respond. His senses are responding to the way that your voice is, because it is utterly natural and it's not confrontational, and it's not, you know, you can tell some journalists, goodness me, I don't want to be interviewed by certain people. I just think no. But the tone of the voice, what your auditory system is picking up, he will be looking through his eyes, looking at you and thinking, yeah, this guy's he's not a threat here. You know, he's a big. I was going to describe things, but I'll leave that for another day. But just this lovely fella, you know, just across the way, your tone of voice, the pitch that you're speaking at, and then the way that you are phrasing things and doing things, and his sensory response to that is he can open up a little bit. He can just relax a little bit more into the chair. His body starts to open up, his proprioceptors. He starts to feel more engaged with his whole body. And I'm sure, well, that's how we just want to be living in that relaxed state, which is the best sensory health we possibly can be.
It was interesting. I don't think I was the oldest one on the press line. I was probably up there somewhere. which is a fascinating thing to consider at nearly 50. But there was, there was such different group. I mean, all the journalists were just brilliant. They had such different styles. And one of the things that I would say probably does come with maturity and age is I didn't want to be like anybody else. Because why? It's too hard. Do you know, I am who I am, and if you don't like it, I don't care. Move on. It's just the way it is. It's not a nasty don't care. It's I'm quite confident and comfortable with who I am. And I don't know whether he'd had a bad experience with a microphone, perhaps a tough question he wasn't anticipating. Maybe he even looked at me and thought, "Oh, it's a bloke. What's he going to say?" I suppose there was a fairly good mix of male, female people on the press line. But I mean, as rooms go, maximum respect to the cast and crew. It was so noisy. Your average size lounge is probably not that far off the room that we were in, with maybe 50 people in there, all trying to talk and be interviewed. It was brilliant fun. It was very hot. It was incredibly noisy. And all the cast, all the crew were just unbelievably good because they were able to concentrate. Now, one person said, didn't hear a word of that because the noise just got too much. And you have to make a choice. Do you think, well, what do you mean you didn't hear? That's very rude. Why weren't you listening? Or, as I did think, yeah, it just got loud, didn't it? But again, I guess there's more of a maturity and acceptance of, okay, you didn't hear the question. Or one of the people didn't quite understand the question. That's okay. We'll ask it again. Or you get panicked. Now, the young girl next to me, she was brilliant. She had all these questions out and she knew what she wanted to ask and loads of research. And I was thinking, well, that's impressive. I wouldn't bother doing that. That's not me. But not because it's a good or bad thing. That's not a me thing. And that's what I was trying to say to her, because she was like, well, how do you know what to say? Well, no, I'll just have a chat and see where it goes. But I'm older and it's different.
Yeah, I think there's something about auditory processing as well. When we get anxiety, when we get stress into the system, it changes what goes on in our ear or the way that our brain processes. I haven't studied it specifically to know exactly which bit of it is, but I do know that auditory processing is affected when we are more anxious, when there's anxiety, when there is stress in our system. So that's where, like, it interviews as like that, or for a job. You've got to be able to hear the question. If the room isn't too loud in the first place, you've got to be able to hear it. But also there are times that your auditory processing just won't be picking it up properly. You've got to have really good discrimination. We call it auditory discrimination, to be able to pinpoint the interviewer's voice in the midst of everyone else talking around. So you've got to be able to, and often then people will use their eyes, use the sense of vision to help the ears tune into the voice that they want to listen to. And that's a conflict. That's really tricky for some of my people. But it's also then once the information has gone into your ears, the processing of it is, right, what did they say? What did they ask? How am I going to respond to it? What type of response? How long am I going to be able to speak for? You've got all of this other processing going on in your head, even before you've opened your mouth to give a response. And that's where it's just like, sometimes the questions, it just disappears because the physical sound went in, it got turned into electrical stimuli, was on its way. And yet somehow in the journey there, or in the journey around the brain, as the brain's trying to work out what to say back the way, the content's just gone, and or the questions is gone, and therefore you have to ask again. And that's something that if someone is aware that they do get anxious before an interview, whether it be for a job or generally just chatting, try and set your system up as best possible so that you are in the calmest and most regulated, sensory healthy space as you possibly can be. And your nervous system is in that place so that you're able to listen to those things, think as well as you possibly can do, and then express it. Because there's no mercy really when it comes to live anything. What you say happens. What you say doesn't happen. It's exactly what I'm demonstrating here. It's like, it is what it is. It comes out and it goes out and it's gone.
We can't edit this because it's gone. It's too late. I'll tell you, one of the loveliest things was her very first interview guest, because you could see she was quite nervous. She was shaking, voice was a bit trembly, and she was obviously nervous. And I'm so grateful for her that the very first person she saw absolutely knew she was nervous. Tell she was nervous, and he was brilliant because he said, "Let's just pause. Where would you like me to stand? Is this a good place for you?" And he just sort of stopped the whole thing. Let her, I guess, just engage Brow. And it's great. And after that, she went. And that's the thing. If she'd have had somebody else who was just grumpy, I was thinking I would be cross with that person if they were grumpy with her because it's their first time. And it was great that this person was the first guest, that they were so patient and recognized, okay,
Mm.
am I standing in the right place? Is that okay? Do you want me to step back a bit or forwards? And it was just the way he engaged with her to say, I'm here, don't worry. Let's do this together. And I loved that because so often we see someone, and if they're nervous, we might take advantage of it. Out driving with my boys, learning to drive, and someone took advantage of them. They clearly saw the L plate and drove in front of them. Terrible. Technically not breaking the law, but really rude and aggressive, and didn't need to happen because it's kind of instinctive. Well, you're going to take a long time. I'm going to keep going. No, actually, they wouldn't have been any longer if they'd have waited. But we make these assumptions, and I was so grateful for this lady that the first guy that she spoke to just stopped everything to make sure she was comfortable to ask the questions, which was great to watch.
I love things like that. It's those little things that hearten, make you feel good about being, humanity, doing the right thing sometimes. It's there's so much out there where it's not. And then those tiny little things, you just think, yes, that is lovely. Those are the things that cheer your day, and those are the things we should be sharing. I think let's share one thing a day about what somebody positive has done for you and how they've done it. It's a nice way of building up your own sense of self, just because you recognize it in somebody else, even if you're not the one you're not building yourself up about yourself. You're just building yourself up because it feels good to be able to comment well. Even that is really important.
We've all got firsts in our jobs where we're nervous. Everyone knows you're going to be nervous. Everyone knows there's every possibility you might mess it up or not. But if you encourage the person, then hey, who knows what they can do? I remember my first interview. I was trembling like a leaf, and they didn't notice because I managed to somehow sustain an air of confidence, which is kind of cool. I suppose that's part of my character. But I know that as you went through the evening, it was very tiring, very hot. And I noticed I was quite alert to my senses for some reason. I think because I'd arrived with my zip broken, which is like, this is brilliant. Great stuff. So I sat there the whole time with my jacket on my lap. Then we watched the film, and that's very emotional. So now we're in the room in the cinema, my sort of private screening cinema. So that's quite loud. Obviously, there's explosions and all that. And the thing about the film is it's about Nazi Germany. It's about someone standing up against tyranny, against the sort of totalitarian Hitler and all the stuff that was going on, and saying, that's not wrong. I'm going to stand up against it. And then obviously gets caught by the Gestapo. Very nasty things happen. Not for people under 15. I think I'd agree with the director on that one. But then we're going through the film. We've seen all these lovely people on the press line, and now we're watching them on the stage, which is kind of cool, on the cinema. But then it's doing all sorts of emotions to us because we're watching the life of this true story, which is always more powerful. And I'm going through other emotions, and I'm crying, and there's a little bit of laughter every so often. Thankfully, there was some sort of light-hearted moments interspersed into the film, which was good. But it's all the emotions. And then we came out of the thing, and there was this exhaustion that I felt from the night. Also an elation as we left into the open air. There was a real that was an amazing night. What a great privilege. And thank you to all the people who made it possible for us to attend. But also there's an exhaustion, but it wasn't a bad exhaustion. It was a good exhaustion because you can be tired for good reasons. And then I could feel my senses kind of calming and settling because now we're not sort of performing, and now we can just go and get a tube home. It was really good.
It's lovely. I know that good exhaustion. It's not often that happens. I going off to camp, once a year, and you're so tired, but you're also so filled up with goodness. Just because the camp that I go to, it's just really, people care. It's just really lovely, and you're filled up. You're filled up spiritually, physically, conversationally, socially. There's just so many good aspects that all come together when you go on camp. But obviously, you're tired. The sensory overwhelm is significant, unless you can retreat to your tent or caravan or chalet, and therefore those times are really important. But it's It'd be interesting. I wonder how many people have good. That's the only good exhaustive time I have, and that I can recollect. I know a lot of my people would just feel exhaustion, full stop, and it wouldn't come alongside that feeling of positivity. But do you get many of those times a year when you get the both?
See, I think festivals and conferences, they are especially exhausting because if you're working on a stand, and we quite often do live radio as well, obviously
Mm,
you've got the physical strains on the voice and all the rest of it. That's probably not a surprise to most people. So we are physically drained from what we do. But again, I love doing live radio. So actually, in some ways, yes, every time I do live radio, I'm exhausted and I always got a smile on my face. If I've done a conference with live radio, I'm absolutely washed out, exhausted, and I'm ecstatic as well. I remember we did a men's festival. It was a few days. I think we got about 2 or 3 hours a night of sleep because it was so hot and it was just we couldn't sleep. It wasn't the noise; it was just too hot for too long and then too early again. So maybe 2 or 3 hours of sleep. We were working for like 15 hours a day, 18 hours a day, and absolutely loved it. And that was a good exhaustion as well. Completely
mm,
wasted, really, physically, mentally, emotionally, but also really enjoyed it. Now, for some people, of course, that would be their worst nightmare. No sleep, couldn't cope with that. Too much noise in a big tent, can't cope with that. I'm fortunate with what I do that I quite enjoy doing that thing. Now, I don't enjoy the tiredness, but I do enjoy meeting people because I love interacting with people I've never met before.
mm.
And that's something about who I am, I guess. But yeah, a completely different track tonight because I just, having been through that, I was really aware of my senses
Mm.
went through, and I don't know why particularly. I've been in all sorts of random situations, but just how it feels. We were on the tube, going down into Leicester Square, and this chap looked to me, someone in a black tie, get up. He's all very dapper there, sir, if I may say, as I was getting down the escalator. So that made me feel good. I'm getting off the tube a bit later, and there was a bunch of women who was getting off. Like, have you been to a wedding? No, just a film screening. And they were like, "Wow, you look really amazing! Like you're properly dressed up." Well, yeah, these are our own suits. And I don't feel good in a suit. But here's another one for you. I don't like wearing a suit. I like combat trousers and a t-shirt with a hoodie. Very happy. Everybody who sees me in my black tie says, "Oh, you look so relaxed. You must really enjoy wearing this all of the time." Not even close. But something about it I must like, even if I think I don't.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Because you're still giving off, you're not uncomfortable. I mean, and you're not masking. That's the other thing. Is that there's my people who would be really irritated by the shirt, especially the collar, or having to do the button up. It's like, where's nightmare? And then you've got all this texture, up against them, and it's like tight, and it's like close, and it really is their worst nightmare. But they have to do it if they have to do it. If they don't, they'll be exactly, they just get their t-shirt on and yeah, just get away with wearing something different. When they have to do it, that exhaustion from having to mask, having to cover, having to pretend that it isn't bothering them, that is huge. That is an exhaustion that is not fun at all.
Now, I know we've taken a bit of an interesting approach to sensory health, but I just thought I'd throw that at you because sensory health is going to affect us in different ways. A lot of what we went through, because I know I've got a pretty good sensory health system, and I'm fairly well balanced. I know where I am in the world. I actually had quite a good time. So did Nathan. There were two of us there, and I think that's another element which I just wanted to finish on because I went with somebody who I know and trust implicitly. If he holds a camera, I know he wants me to take the lens off or hold a lens or put another one on because we've worked together so much now. We know what we've got to do. I went to get a bottle and they'd already got some out of my hand so I can take a drink. So we're really quite slick and fluid with each other. That takes so much pressure off in so many ways that we can perform. So I'm not worrying about photos or video. We got a bit of video. He's doing that bit. If the microphones aren't working, it's not my problem. He's monitoring that. And I trust that he's going to do that in order that I can do my bit, which is talking to people. So he captures the sound and the vision. And likewise, there are other ways we work together which really matter. And the thing is, I've got some beautiful teams within the radio network. And when you have that kind of the two people working together like that, because we've worked a long time, therefore it gets easier, and that then takes some of the extra burden. It's not there, or if it is there, it sort of fizzles away because it's all right because I got someone who knows what I'm going to do next, and it's a bit scary how much he knows what I'm going to do next sometimes. But that's I don't know, good or bad thing sometimes depending on your perspective.
Oh, it's lovely. I think that is so. I love teamwork. I really love teamwork when it works well.
Yes, when it works well. And I think about sensory health in particular, when you've got good teamwork, if one person's struggling, like I've been struggling with my leg of late with my pain sciatic nerve. So Nathan carried the rucksack, and if I was struggling, he was really patient. He's not like, come on, get a move on. he would just sort of shield me if I was having a bit of a breather because it hurt or whatever. And the thing is that then takes all the stress levels off. You've still got stuff to do. You've still got to walk through London, and where are we going? We don't know. We're really hungry because we didn't get to eat our dinner, so now we're really struggling in that regard. But because there's two of us, all of a sudden it's much easier to get through all the challenges that exist.
Precious.
It really is. And we'll come back to a slightly more normal sensory health thing next week.
Do you reckon?
But the thing is, life happens around us, and I think that's one of the things that I like to bring is, hey, if I'm living life, let's talk about it, because here's a good example. I've done that a few times. And I was quite chuffed with how I handled potentially quite a stressful situation, and especially with the zip, that was fun. But you kind of have to find a way of getting through it. And I think, especially with sensory health, knowing some part of you say is knowing where you are in the world. Not, do you know, your place in a negative way. That's not what we talk about. But know where you are in the world and where you fit within the world around you. It does matter. And I knew my place in a really healthy regard in that way, which meant I could just focus on the job. But if your senses are out of whack, you're just not feeling good because you're tired or you're hot or you're late because you've arrived late and people are saying, where are you? And, you know, I wasn't stressed by that. And they weren't being nasty. They knew we got late. Hey, it's London. Being late is just what happens. It's like falling off a surfboard. It's going to happen. But all those things can be made better if we prepare. And when it went wrong, the plan went wrong because it was the wrong tube train because the tube line was shut. So we got to a different station. It's like, I don't know where I am now. But we have a plan. And one of the things I'm conscious of is I don't have lots of backups and caveats, but I do like to know what's supposed to happen and have a bit of a plan. Well, if this doesn't happen, let's do that instead. Because then it's not going to hit you across the face like a kipper on a cold morning, because then you've got a plan.
And that is not a good sensory experience.
I imagine not. I'm assuming so. Right, if you want to connect with Laure Jackson about your senses and talk about what on earth I was talking about, you can do. Just go to our website, pure247radio.org, pure247radio.org/ALJ, and you connect with Laure Jackson, who operates virtually all around the world.
I do. Thank you. See you next time.
Here at Pure 247 Radio, we've had the privilege of speaking to some amazing people with some amazing stories.
I was about 5k off the coast paddling, and I was watching this storm on the land, and it literally hit a mountain, and rather just going over the top of it, just turned and just came straight at me. You can't stay on the board in that instance, so I literally am jumping off the back of the board. I've got everything tethered down on the board. I'm just holding on to the back of the board.
As I walked in, there was a fight going on the floor. There was a police sergeant sailing over the desk to help with restraining somebody. And the doors were clanging shut, all the big metal gates, and there were alarms going off and radios. And I felt this most enormous peace come over me, because I realised that this is where God wanted me to spend my career behind bars.
It was like a baptism of fire, and it was like the most socially deprived council wards in Britain. And then we were going into schools, and then kids were coming to the gigs, but then knocking on my door at night, and I was out there playing football till 11:30 p.m. at night, 12 o'clock, feeding kids, running youth clubs.
If you've missed an inspiring conversation and want to catch up, or you'd like to revisit a brilliant interview, you can. Our interviews are available on YouTube and podcast, so you can always catch up anytime you like. Search for Pure 247 Radio wherever you get your podcasts, or find our YouTube channel at Pure 247 Radio, or head over to www.pure247radio.org/catch up.